Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindy Chavez here. Today is Wednesday, May the 16th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And we're happily looking forward to actually having 2 doses of happy, because yesterday, despite the best efforts of Wendy and I, the second dose kind of got lost in the shuffle because a major storm came through and knocked out the power in the middle of the podcast. So if you were listening live yesterday, or if you've been looking for a recording of the podcast from yesterday afternoon, that's why you're not finding it. It disappeared into the ether. But today we're hoping for a much better result, and the weather forecast is looking good. So, yeah, things are all good. It's one of those things like you and I talked about before the show, Cindy. It's one of those things that 5 minutes later you forget about, and that's exactly what happened. 5 minutes later I forgot about it.
Well, thankfully, there's another show today, and there'll be another show this afternoon.
There is, yes.
The world keeps turning, and but you're never expecting that, right?
No, that was a surprise. And the interesting part was I was just at the point in the podcast where I was describing my technique with the weather, right, to keep the weather calm and so forth. Because we had a major storm cell. It was a pretty big one coming at us. It was one that was so bad they were talking about it turning into a possible tornado, and it was kind of coming toward us. So I figured, well, we got to do something about that. So I started doing my thing to divert it. And while I didn't keep the power from going off, because I forgot to ask about that part, I did manage to divert the storm and went south of us. So, at least that part worked. It's just I forgot to say, oh, by the way, keep the power on.
You just can't remember everything,
I know.
Right? I always think when things like that happen that, just one little thing changes and it changes everything. And I always just have to say, okay, well, maybe that protected me from something, or it gave someone else an opportunity for something, or, it's all good. It's never comfortable at the time when something major happens that we totally don't expect, especially like when you're doing a live show and there's dead air all of a sudden. It's like,
well,
hello?
Actually, believe it or not, I didn't have any kind of negative reaction to it. It was like, oh, the power is gone. Like, that was it.
Well,
that
you
was
knew that the power was gone, but I'm thinking of Wendy.
Well, yeah, Wendy. She say, "Hello, are you still there?" Oh, that was funny though. It was good. So, how was your day yesterday?
My day yesterday was really good. I just had a really nice day where everything went according to plan and according to schedule, and it was smooth. No big, surprises. So I'm happy with the way the week is going so far, for sure. And the weather here has been, it's been beautiful, but it's really getting hot. That long stretch, that unusually long stretch of 70-ish degree weather, it is gone now.
Oh, I see. Well,
for some reason, we usually say that we get a week of spring, because that's about it.
Yep.
Low humidity, nice mild temperatures for about a week. Well, this year, I don't know, I think we had 4 or 5 weeks. And so I was really digging it. And I got it in my head that, good. It's like, this is the way it's going to be. And then, no, this is not the way.
Well, I have found
I was just attracting it. It's like, boy,
yeah.
This and appreciating it. Maybe we can have like 6 months of it.
I'm telling you, it can actually be done. Now, it's probably a little bit easier up here in Connecticut, but nevertheless, it gets pretty hot here. Not like it does in Louisiana, but typically humid, hot in the upper 90s, sometimes over 100 in the middle of the summer. And, that's not terribly pleasant weather. Well, I think it was last year and the year before, I was really putting out there that I wanted the temperate weather, the kind that we love in the spring and so forth. And while the entire summer wasn't like that, boy, a large chunk of both of those summers was very temperate. It was really nice. So, yeah, you really can influence it.
Well, it was so funny because we would have 10 days in a row where it was in the 70s, and we were just, wow, this is amazing. And then we'd have a day where it'd be, 88 or something. We'd say, okay, well, I guess that's over. But then I'd look at the weather app on my phone, and there'd be those couple of really hot days, and then a whole week of just 72, 73. It was like, I was getting used to it.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see. I'm going to, it would be really nice that sporadically throughout the very hot summer, we could have a break of those kind of days without rain. See, that's usually it's what we get here in the summer. we get rain, and it does cool everything down a little bit, but you have to deal with the pouring rain. So
Right.
that kind of tropical. Anyway, but things are good. Things are good. The weather is nice.
I was just realizing that our international friends are probably thinking that we're crazy because they deal with Celsius temperatures and we're dealing with Fahrenheit temperatures. So, temperatures in the hundreds, that's like, you're literally boiling in water.
Right. Yeah. I have some clients that are in Canada, and in the wintertime, they'll tell me, and the thing is it's even cold if you translate it to Fahrenheit. But
yes, right.
They will tell me what their temperature is, and they'll be like, oh, it's 40 below. And it's like, oh, yeah, I have to remember it's Fahrenheit. It's still probably below, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't do those kind of winters.
Well, I don't think any of us really love those winters. Well, actually, there's probably somebody out there who does, which is a good thing. By the way, if anybody's noticing my voice sounds a little bit hoarse today, it's because it is. the bit of whatever it was that I was wrestling with yesterday. Boy, I can't get my day straight.
You're a time traveler now,
I
Walt.
am.
That's awesome.
I'm totally lost, but I just hit the wrong button. I went in the wrong direction. I went to tomorrow instead of yesterday. But the thing I was dealing with yesterday has mostly cleared up, but as so often happens, it's now showing up in terms of sounding hoarser than I really am. So I actually feel pretty good. It's just that I don't sound like my normal self. So that's why.
Well, and your voice actually, to me, sounds pretty normal.
Oh, good.
Like I don't think I noticed it as much as you do. I think you sound pretty good. As a matter of fact, I had kind of forgotten about it till you mentioned it earlier. I thought, oh, that's right. Your voice was hurting yesterday. So hey, you're already on the mend after one day. That's pretty powerful.
I was working on it very hard throughout yesterday and this morning, just getting into that really positive place and really pushing it, because I definitely did not want to go down the other path. And it seems to be working. It seems to be helping. I mean, they say that if you catch it early, then it's a lot easier to reverse the momentum. And that seems to be the case in this situation as well. Now,
and so you're not just talking about catching some kind of sickness early. You're talking about catching a vibrational shift early, aren't you?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that vibrational shift is the huge thing to catch early. And I'm glad to hear that my voice doesn't sound harsh or anything. I can actually feel it. You know how when your voice is starting to have a little bit of a problem, you can feel it in your throat. It's like it's like a roughness or something like that. Well, I can feel that, but I'm glad you don't hear it. That's good.
Not hearing it. And it's interesting because the place in the book that we're going to launch into today is going to talk about this exact kind of thing of dealing with
it
thoughts.
Always does. Every single time, or almost every time. Now, actually, there have been a few exceptions, but it's amazing. Most of them talk about exactly whatever it is we're talking about in the introduction. So go figure. So,
I think it's funny, too. It's great. It's just that we are aligned with what we're talking about. So
it's true. It's very true.
It's a nice thing to recognize, I think. But the title, the subtitle, 15 minutes to my intentional well-being.
15 minutes.
I got excited when I saw it. I was like, okay, 15 minutes, that's pretty short period of time.
Yeah, I figure I can handle 15 minutes. That's doable, So what does it say?
Well, it starts out with, and for those of you who may be just listening to us, we've been working our way through the book, Money and the Law of Attraction. The subtitle of the book is Learning to Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness. And we are talking about well-being right now. We're in the paperback version. We're at the bottom of page or the middle of page 104. It's also available on Kindle. And so that's not going to be on the same page, but it starts out saying it's not easy to imagine a healthy foot when your toe is painfully throbbing.
It's true. It's very true.
I read that. I thought this sounds like a lot of our discussion over the last couple of days.
That's right. Yeah.
About that it's hard to hold a vision of how great I feel when I don't feel great. Right.
It's a challenge. It really is.
Yeah. So it says it's not easy to imagine a healthy foot when your toe is painfully throbbing, but it is of great value for you to do everything you can do to distract yourself from your throbbing toe. However, a time of acute physical discomfort is not an effective time to try to visualize well-being. The best time to do that is when you're feeling the best you usually feel. In other words, if you usually feel physically better during the first part of the day, choose that time for the visualization of your new story. If you usually feel best after taking a long, warm bath, choose that time for visualization. So I think that's really interesting to consciously and deliberately, first of all, be aware of when you feel the best in your day.
Right. Yeah, that's a big thing right there.
I think it is. I think a lot of us don't pay attention.
Yep.
I know that I feel best in the earlier part of the day, probably just because I think my energy level is higher. But some people may feel better at a different time. So if you're trying to work on well-being and increasing your level of well-being and improving your health, this is good advice to set aside some time, 15 minutes, it says, during a period of time when you feel your best or feel better, set aside approximately 15 minutes where you can close your eyes and withdraw as much as possible from your awareness of what is. Try to find a quiet place where you will not be distracted and imagine yourself in a state of physical thriving. Imagine walking briskly and breathing deeply and enjoying the flavor of the air you are breathing. Imagine walking briskly up a gentle incline and smile in appreciation of the stamina of your body. See yourself bending and stretching and enjoying the flexibility of your body.
It's a good idea, by the way. That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
No matter what your physical state is.
Well, it reminds me of, have you ever heard that story of, I think it was a basketball team. It might have been, somebody might have mentioned it in one of the books, maybe Pam Grout's book. But it's a study that they did with two basketball teams that were practicing certain amounts. And with one of the teams, they had them meditate for, instead of practice, like a particular amount of time each day instead of practice, like 15 minutes or a half an hour, I'm not sure how long. And they had them picture themselves, playing really well.
Doing the drills and so forth, yeah.
Doing all the drills perfectly and, shooting the baskets. And that team's scores improved.
I believe it.
And that's what this reminds me of, because seeing yourself bending and stretching and enjoying the flexibility of your body. I was thinking about you with the knees and like the crouching, just imagining yourself doing it, it's pretty cool. It says, take your time exploring pleasant scenarios with the sole intent of enjoying your body and appreciating its strength and stamina and flexibility and beauty. And now this is italicized. That tells us it's important. When you visualize for the joy of visualizing, rather than with the intention of correcting some deficiency, your thoughts are more pure and therefore more powerful. When you visualize to overcome something that's wrong, your thoughts are diluted with the lackful side of the equation. Oh, I love this so much.
That's a good point.
Because I remember teaching about this, and I remember when I was first learning it myself, that it was really hard for me to get, because in my mind I thought, but I'm doing this to improve the condition, right? Whatever that is,
right?
Whether that's a physical malady, whether that's a financial condition, whether that's loneliness and wanting, a relationship, whatever we're visualizing for. And I would think, okay, because one of my teachers said this, I'm trying to think, he used a Buddhist koan to teach it. He said, you can't, I'll have to find it. It's like, you can't, I'm going to put it in the terms of visualization. You can't visualize it to change it, but you can, it's like you can't visualize it to make it happen, but you can let it happen. But if you try to let it happen to make it happen, it won't happen. And I was like, because I'm like saying, look, the whole reason that I'm doing this is because I want to change the condition, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then I got it. And then one day I got it, because what happened was, in the course of meditating or visualizing or holding a vision for a particular thing, you hear me all the time talk about Neville Goddard's assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
Right.
Well, one day I was just enjoying myself, visualizing a particular scenario. And I just suddenly had that epiphany of I really was feeling, or at least imagining that I was feeling what it would feel like to have this improved condition. And it was so amazing that I thought, oh, I want to do this exercise again just because it felt so great. And it was like, aha. Oh, that's it. I get it. So now I can make the appointment with myself to have the 15 minutes or whatever, practice of imagining this, assuming the feeling, just for the pure sake of enjoying the 15-minute exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I stopped worrying about the changed condition. And of course, you know what happened, right?
Which is a good idea. Right. Yeah.
Manifestation happens. Mm-hmm. That's what happens.
Yep.
So I remember explaining this to someone who was really upset. It's like, no, I don't want to just learn how to enjoy the imagination. I want the real thing. And actually said, I'm not going to be happy just imagining about something. I want the real thing. And I thought, it was the same with me. I had to just get it. Mm-hmm. I just had to one day say, oh, I get it. And now that's where my head's at when I'm talking about holding a vision or assuming the vision or assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It's like for its own sake.
And there's actually a way to bridge it, I think. This is what I've been doing. You mentioned my knee and how I've been trying to get the knee to heal. And it is healing, by the way. I have been deliberately wanting to heal the knee using bike riding because bike riding is a good therapeutic way to do it. However, I start with that, but as I'm getting ready to go out on the bike, I transition it into how much I'm going to enjoy the bike ride. So that way, yes, I can satisfy the piece of me that wants to say, I'm going to heal this thing. And then once I've satisfied that part of me, then I can go do the real part, which is I'm going to enjoy the bike ride. In fact, I'm going to have so much fun on this bike ride. I'm going to get out into the outdoors, and I'm going to see how wonderful the weather is and the blue sky. So I shift it. I kind of use the bridging technique to go from one to the next. And
I really like that. It's sort of like someone giving you medicine that's wonderful.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Like if the doctor said, okay, now the best thing that you can do for your knee is to, like, I don't know, eat chocolate cake or something, right? It's that you would know you were doing it for the knee, but you'd be like, oh my gosh, this cake is so good. I'm so glad that this is my medicine.
Some of us would be going out to hurt our knees deliberately just so we could have the medicine.
So I get that. I like that bridging technique. So it's like satisfying the part of us that says the reason why I'm doing this is because I want the changed condition.
And then once I've got that out of the way.
And I love doing this so much. This exercise is so awesome that I could just do it just because it's so much fun or it feels so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I always do it in that order too. If I try to reverse it, it doesn't work as well because then I find myself focusing more on I'm going to fix this. But if I do the fix this first, followed by I'm going to enjoy this, then I spend more time focusing on I'm going to enjoy this.
And I love the way you're talking about this. Like, okay, this is what I do, and this is the order that I instruct myself about
That's
this.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it reminds me of the mirror work. It's like, okay, this is the instruction that I'm going to give myself about this. It's a powerful thing.
It is a very powerful thing.
So let's see. It says, sometimes people explain that they have long-held desires that have not manifested, and they argue that the law of attraction is not working for them. But that's because they've been asking for improvement from a place of keen awareness of the lack of what they desire. It takes time to reorient your thoughts so that they're predominantly focused toward what you want. But in time, it will feel perfectly natural to you to do so. And in time, your new story will be the one that you tell most easily.
Isn't that a surprise? That was for me anyway. Because for the longest time, I was in step one. And each time it was a bit of a trial. It took work. It took effort. It took a long time before it started to become easy and just sort of flowed out of me and became second nature. But once it did, I didn't even have to think twice about it. It just flowed out. It was weird.
Well, and I think part of that is because as we get used to the thoughts and the new story, we start gathering evidence that says it's true.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Because, because things will start to manifest, maybe small things, maybe bigger things, but just things in our experience that kind of prove it out. And then maybe we start to hear other people tell the story that we've been telling about us.
Now, that's pretty wild when that happens. That the first few times that happened, it kind of took me aback. Like, what? What did you knew about that? How did you know about that?
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, it becomes real. It becomes true.
Yeah.
And of course that becomes easier.
Probably the first time that happened was when I was out doing my walks, and on one of the walks, it was one of the first few times that I was also playing music on my iPhone, and I had my headphones on. I don't use the earbuds. I hate earbuds. I'm sorry, I just do. But I was listening on the headphones and walking along, and I guess I had a big smile on my face because all of a sudden, all the people I passed. Now, normally I greet everybody who I pass and so forth, but they were all giving me these big, big smiles. I'm thinking, what, is there something on my shoulder? Did I forget to change my shirt? What's going on? Oh, no. Oh, they're smiling at me. Oh, I must be smiling. Oh, I didn't even know it.
That's such a great, it's nonverbal, and it's still like people reflecting back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Walt, before we move any further, because the next section's italicized, so it's going to be important, but I wanted to take a break and remind everybody to head over to loatoday.net and subscribe to the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's very easy to do, too. Very easy to do. It's all the instructions are right there. And there are thousands of reasons why we could give you, the idea to do it. But the best one of all is you get to have every single episode come to your phone, and you can play it anytime you want to. And that's what people do. There are people. We have one listener who plays it while he's listening on his tractor in his field. He's a farm guy, and he's driving his tractor, and he's listening to LOA Today. I imagine that's not the normal commute, but it is for him, So you can listen to it in any situation that fits your schedule, and that's what's so cool about podcasts.
Yeah, and yesterday we had a caller yesterday morning, and I believe that she spoke to us for a few minutes, and then she said, "Okay, I'm going to go now, and I'm going to be listening to you while I do my morning exercises."
That's right. Yeah, she did. Said, right? She did. Yeah, so that was Anne-Marie. Right.
Yeah. And so then you can listen anytime if you can't listen live. And also there's sort of a bonus reason happening right now that it would be great for you to subscribe. And that is that when our book full of stories of true successful manifestation stories comes out, the subscribers will get an opportunity to just have it for free. Isn't that right, Walt?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's scheduled to come out on May 25th, I believe it is. It's a Friday leading into the Memorial Day weekend, which is a major weekend here in the U.S. And throughout that weekend, the 25th through the 28th, all 4 of those days, anyone who is a listener is going to be able to go to a link that'll be on our homepage and get a free copy of the Kindle version, the ebook. No charge at all. So, yeah, you want to make sure you stay tuned to find out exactly when that link is going to be up there so that you can get your copy.
All right. Yay. Okay. And then once you subscribe, be sure to hit those share buttons and let people know so that we can keep bringing this awesome message and dose of happiness to you every day.
And by the way, there are no excuses with the social media buttons. We have every button in existence.
There's social media buttons I've never heard of there. So wherever you're at on social media, you're going to be able to find the button. All right. So back to what we were talking about. We were talking about that in time, the new story will be the one that we tell most easily.
Right.
And then this, again, is italicized. If you do take the time to positively imagine your body, those good feeling thoughts will become dominant, and then your physical condition must acquiesce to those thoughts. If you only focus upon the conditions as they exist, nothing will change. As you imagine and visualize and verbalize your new story, in time, you will believe the new story. And when that happens, the evidence will flow swiftly into your experience. A belief is only a thought you continue to think. And when your beliefs match your desires, then your desires must become your reality. Nothing stands between you and anything that you desire other than your own patterns of thought. There is no physical body, no matter what the state of decline, no matter what the conditions, that cannot achieve an improved condition. Nothing else in your experience responds as quickly as your own physical body to your patterns of thought. So there's something here I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
And that is, this whole section, and it starts out with, it's not easy to imagine a healthy foot when your toe is painfully throbbing. So there's that issue of the condition that we're trying to improve getting in the way of our thought. And
right.
something that I always try to remember is an idea that every symptom is a healing gesture. So the symptoms that we have that are bothering us, they're actually our body working on healing, because our body's propensity is to always be healing. It naturally wants to heal, right?
Yep.
We get a cut and we see it within 24 hours. It's healing up.
Right.
And so that's an important thing, or at least it has been an important thing for me to remember when I'm experiencing some symptom that I don't want, is that my body's actually always in the process of healing. And so if we can support it by even that recognition, it's like I had this place on my foot where I tried on a shoe that had a little problem on it, and I walked around in this shoe for a little while, and it just rubbed a little spot on the top of my foot that ended up being really problematic, much more than I would think for this little spot.
Ouch.
But I realized yesterday that I've been taking care of it, and I realized yesterday that it was itching. And I was like, oh, that means it's healing up. Finally.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And so every symptom that we have is a healing gesture. I think for me, that's an important thing to remember, because of this line here. If you only focus upon the conditions as they exist, nothing will change.
So how do you connect the two together? I mean, the idea of when you're actually looking at a symptom, you're looking at what is. So how is that conducive to change?
I remind myself, this symptom is happening because my body is healing.
So it's a sign of improvement.
And it's just the perspective of recognizing that it's sort of like recognizing first, I'm going out to ride my bike because I know this is a great way to support myself and the healing of my knees. And then I'm going to enjoy the bike ride.
Right.
Well, the itch on the top of my foot, wasn't, sometimes you can get a mosquito bite or something that feels like it's just going to drive you insane. It itches so bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, this itch was maybe a 5 or a 6. It wasn't, it wasn't driving me insane yet. But what I'm saying is that as soon as I said, oh, it's healing. It's sort of like it almost felt instantly better. I don't think the itch really changed, but I was perceiving that was a healing itch instead of a mosquito bite itch, right?
So
you know what I mean? It's
so the perspective that something is healing is actually a way to transition you into that better feeling place.
Yeah, that was the bridging. That was
right.
Okay, good, good. Go ahead and itch a little bit. That means you're healing up, right? Instead of, my foot is itching and this is really, distracting me right now. So perspective. And I think that that's what this section is actually talking about, is allowing the good thoughts to become dominant. So my thought went from, and this is just a little tiny thing, but my thought went from, this itch on my foot is distracting me to, oh, wait, it's healing. That's a better thought. It's just a better thought.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing stands between you and anything that you desire other than your own patterns of thought.
Truth.
No excuses, right?
Yeah.
No excuses. There's no physical body, no matter what the state of decline, no matter what the conditions, that cannot achieve an improved condition. That's encouraging. Nothing else in your experience responds as quickly as your own physical body to your patterns of thought. That's an interesting idea, that nothing in our experience responds as quickly as our own physical body to our patterns of thought. Because I hear some people say that for them, affecting change in the body is one of the hardest things. And I've heard that more than once. But this actually is saying that there isn't anything that will respond faster to your changed thought patterns than your own physical body.
It's very encouraging.
Yeah, sure is. Right.
There's another aspect of this last paragraph that is interesting. And it actually, I think, is a good opportunity to practice bridging. So much of what they write because they write it the way that they write, or they speak it the way they speak it, because they are talking with us, with people who live in the physical world and who interact physically, and we have certain ways of communicating with each other. And so they're trying to, Esther in particular is trying to communicate using language we're used to using. One of the things that we do a lot of, and many people may not recognize this, but it really is true, we do a lot of negative expression. So we spend a lot of time saying what something isn't rather than what it is. And if you look at this paragraph, everything in the paragraph is about what isn't. It's all expressed in the negative. So one of the things I like to do as a bridging practice is to ask myself, okay, can I rephrase this paragraph in the positive? It's not always easy to do, by the way. It takes a little effort to do it. But if
you're talking about the italicized passage that we just read.
Yeah, that one, right.
Nothing stands between you, I see. There's no physical body. Right. So have you done it? Have you translated it into
I haven't. Let's see if we can do it right here. So the first sentence, nothing stands between you and anything that you desire other than your own patterns of thought. So how would we reverse that? Let's see. You have to kind of study it to try to piece it together.
What does it say? The only thing that stands between you and whatever you desire are your patterns of thought?
Your patterns of thought are the way between you and your desire.
Okay.
That's the positive way to say it, I think. Nothing stands between you and anything that you desire other than your own patterns of thought. The reverse, I think, would be your patterns of thought are the way to your desire.
Yep. Easy peasy.
Yep. The second one, there is no physical body, no matter what the state of decline, no matter what the conditions, that cannot achieve an improved condition. Well, that's easy. Any physical body can improve.
Yep.
And then the third one,
the last one,
nothing else in your experience responds as quickly as your own physical body to your patterns of thought. That's also easy. Your body responds quickly to your patterns of thought. But look what happens when you go through that exercise. You work your way to a more positive way of thinking about it. And when you do that regularly, it feels better.
I love this.
Yeah.
So your patterns of thought are the way to your desires.
Yep.
Everybody can achieve an improved condition.
Yep.
Your physical body responds to your patterns of thought.
That's it.
Quicker than anything else.
Quicker than anything else. That's it.
Yeah, I love that.
Isn't that
and
something?
You're so right. We do. I've often said that, when I have a coaching client, one of the first things I make sure that they're getting is that you can't have what you want if you don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be clear. Clarity is our friend here.
Right.
The clearer we can get. And yet a lot of times, and see, I even phrase that in a negative way. You can't have what you want. Right?
So how would you rephrase it then?
You can have anything you want if you know what it is.
Oh, I like that. Very nice.
And so what happens is a lot of times when we're asked what we want, we start to talk about what we don't want.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's just amazing.
Even in the most mundane, right? It's
yeah.
What would you like for dinner? Well, I don't want pizza. We had that last night. And I don't want, it's like, what do you want?
It's our default way of expression. And that's why I say, I don't think most people realize how often they express things in the negative. But if you could actually take an inventory throughout the day, I think you'd find that your negative statements outweigh your positive statements, even when you're talking about nice things, by a factor of like 4 to 1. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Well, I love what we just did, because reading it in the positive has a powerful effect.
Oh, it's a completely different feeling. Yeah.
It is. It really is. That was great. Thank you for pointing that out.
We'll have to remember to do that more often as we read through these passages, because the passages are definitely written in physical-ese, in language that we're used to hearing. But it's also good practice to do what Louise and I call turn it around. Did it come out negative? Well, turn it around. Turn it into something positive.
Love it. So this next little passage, I am not bound by others' beliefs.
Oh, here's another opportunity. How do we reverse that?
With a little bit of effort, focused in the right direction, you will achieve remarkable results. And in time, you will remember that you can be or do or have anything that you focus upon and achieve vibrational alignment with.
I like that. That whole paragraph was positive, and it came out so easily, and it made so much sense.
Mm-hmm. And that's in italics as well. So an important thing. Mm-hmm. Let's read it again. With a little bit of effort, focused in the right direction, you will achieve remarkable results. And in time, you will remember that you can be or do or have anything that you focus upon and achieve vibrational alignment with. So we can have anything we want if we can achieve vibrational alignment with it.
There it is.
You came into your physical body and into this physical world from your non-physical perspective, and you were very clear about your intention to be here. That's funny. That's the clarity we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You did not define all the details of your physical life experience before you got here, but you did set forth clear intentions about the vitality of your physical body from which you would create your life experience. You felt enormous eagerness to be here. When you first arrived in your small infant body, you were closer to the inner world than to the physical world, and your sense of well-being and strength was very strong. But as time passed and you became focused more into your physical world, you began to observe others who had lost their strong connection to well-being, and, bit by bit, your sense of well-being began to fade as well. It is possible to be born into this physical world and continue to remain your connection to who you really are and to your absolute well-being. However, most people, once they're focused onto this time-space reality, do not. The primary reason for the fading of your awareness of personal well-being is the clamoring of those around you for you to find ways to please them. And now this is in italics. While your parents and teachers are, for the most part, well-meaning people, they are nevertheless more interested in your finding ways to please them than in your finding ways to please yourself.
Strange thing, but true.
And so in the process of socialization, almost all people in almost all societies lose their way because they are coaxed or coerced away from their own guidance system. That's a powerful segment right there. And I think most of us might be nodding our heads.
Oh, yeah.
Most societies demand that you make your action your top priority. You are rarely encouraged to consider your vibrational alignment or your connection to your inner world. Most people eventually become motivated by the approval or disapproval that is directed at them by others. And so, with their misplaced attention upon accomplishing the action that is most respected by the onlookers of their lives, they lose their alignment, and then everything in their experience is diminished. But you were eager about being born into this physical world of such amazing variety because you understood the value of that contrast from which you would build your own experience. You knew that you would come to understand from your own experience what you preferred from the variety of options that would be available to you.
Which is also encouraging, by the way, because I do remember kind of early on in my study of LOA wondering what on earth possessed me to come into this world. So hearing this explanation was helpful.
It Why did I wanted this?
Was I crazy? Was I drunk?
Whenever you know what you do not want, this is often the topic of our conversation, right? Whenever you know what you do not want, you understand more clearly what it is that you do want. But so many people take that first step of identifying what is not wanted, and instead of then turning toward what is wanted and achieving vibrational alignment with that, they instead continue to talk about what they do not want. And in time, the vitality that they were born with wanes. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So true. And even true, it's interesting. We're talking here about coming from the non-physical and being born into an infant body, and over time, when I say over time, the vitality they were born with wanes, and we're thinking like years. But yesterday on the podcast, when I was relating the pivot exercise and using my own example, and it just happened to be me fighting off, sore throat, whatever, you felt it immediately.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
So, your vitality waned in the course of 10 seconds of just hearing someone else talk about what, they experienced, talk about what they don't want. That's what we're talking about, right? Instead, they continue to talk about what they do not want. And I was talking about what I did not want for like 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And it affected you, right?
Yeah.
So imagine over a lifetime the effect. Because one of the things that we've been speaking about in this particular chapter about well-being is that complaining, and isn't complaining, the very definition of complaining is that we're talking about what we don't want.
Right, sure.
And so the idea was that complaining, and not just complaining about a physical condition we have that we don't want, complaining about anything, complaining about other people complaining, which is one of the examples.
Yeah.
Is that when we talk about what we don't want, it affects our physical well-being.
It does.
Even if what we're talking about isn't directly connected to our physical health. So when we're complaining about our coworkers who complain all the time, or when we're complaining about, the weather, or when we're complaining about anything in our experience that we don't want, we're actually doing a disservice and actual damage to our physical well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that just makes me never want to complain about anything again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, especially when I take into account the fact that I've been practicing this stuff now for a number of years. I'm getting a lot better at it. And yet, despite the fact that I know that it's all dependent on how I choose to react to any given situation, it's all dependent on what thoughts I choose to have. It's all dependent on what feelings I choose to tie into and so forth. Despite all of the progress that I've made, in this one example, you talked about having a sore throat, and I instantly started feeling a sore throat, which shows me, and I'm not saying this to put myself down in any way, it simply shows me I've got more room to grow into, to learn, to get to the point where you could actually tell that story and it doesn't affect me because I have built myself up so much that it doesn't touch me. The fact that I got that reaction says, oh, I guess I have some more growing to do. I guess I have some more practice to get in to get better and better and better at this.
Yeah, well, I think that we all, I don't think there's an end to it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a discouraging way.
No, not at all.
Like, oh yeah, none of us are ever going to get there. But even Esther says, you're not going to get it all done, right?
That's right.
And so we can always reach for more. We can always reach for a better grasp of it and improve our practice. It's a practice.
It is.
It's a practice.
And it takes practice.
So, this next section says there is time enough to accomplish it, which is kind of funny because we're talking about what's the never-ending story.
Right.
But we do often hear people say that they don't have enough time, or we're running out of time or something like that. So let's see what they have to say. There is time enough to accomplish it. When you do not understand the power of thought, and you do not take the time to align your thought to allow this power, you are then resigned to create through the power of your action, which comparatively is not much. And so If you've been working hard with your action to accomplish something and have not managed to achieve it, often you feel overwhelmed or incapable of now making it happen. Some people simply feel they do not have enough time left in their lives to be and do and have the things that they've dreamed of. But we want you to understand that if you will take the time to deliberately align with the energy that creates worlds, through the power of focusing your thoughts, you will discover a leverage that will help you quickly accomplish things that have formerly seemed not possible. There is nothing that you cannot be, do, or have once you accomplish the necessary alignment. And when you do, your own life experience will give you the evidence of your alignment. Before things actually manifest, your proof of alignment comes in the form of positive, good-feeling emotion. And if you understand that, then you will be able to hold steady to your course while the manifestations of the things you desire are making their way to you. The law of attraction says, that which is like unto itself is drawn. Whatever your state of being, whatever the way you feel, you are attracting more of the essence of that. To want or desire something always feels good when you believe you can achieve it. But desire in the face of doubt feels very uncomfortable.
I wish they underlined that part. That sentence to me is probably the least understood and the most important one of all.
To want or desire something always feels good when you believe you can achieve it. But desire in the face of doubt feels very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so often, how many people desire something while they simultaneously doubt it, and then they try to pretend the doubt isn't there?
Mm-hmm. We want you to understand that wanting something and believing you can accomplish it is a state of alignment, while wanting something and doubting it is misalignment. Wanting and believing is alignment. Wanting and expecting is alignment. Expecting something unwanted is not alignment. You can feel your alignment or misalignment. I love that this section talks about, let's see, where was it? It's talking about evidence. I think it actually even used the word evidence. That when it feels good, the good feeling emotion that we have is the evidence that we are aligned. Yeah, here it is. There's nothing that you cannot be, do, or have once you accomplish the necessary alignment. And when you do, your own life experience will give you the evidence of your alignment. Before things actually manifest, your proof of alignment comes in the form of positive, good feeling emotion. And so earlier when we talked about just doing the exercise for the sake of the joy of the exercise, and I used a silly analogy of what if the medicine we had to take to help our body feel better was chocolate cake?
Right.
And you said some of us would go hurting our knees just to get the prescription.
I was making a joke, but I think probably somebody would.
Well, and what would we say if someone else said, that's silly, that's not helping you one bit? We would be like, well, I'm going to eat it anyway.
Yeah, right.
The doctor said to eat it and it's really good and I don't care. I'm going to eat it anyway. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about with that good feeling emotion. It's proof that we're aligned, and alignment's what we're looking for. And so we can just do it for the sake of the joy of the experience, and yet also know that that's the proof of alignment. Alignment is the most important thing.
Somebody posted on Facebook today the question, what is inspired action? It was the first time he'd ever heard the term before. And without even thinking about it, I replied something to the effect of, the difference between action and inspired action is an idea of action that comes to you while you're feeling good, while you're in alignment.
And the idea feels good.
The idea feels good, yeah.
That's one of the things that we, and another thing that's really important, might be, to me anyway, the most important thing to remember about inspired action is that it doesn't necessarily make logical sense to the desired outcome.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, isn't it? It very often is true. In fact, often you can't even see a connection.
No, like, you may be saying, I really want to hear back from some of the authors of the book. And you're feeling good and you're thinking about the outcome of the book. And suddenly you feel like going for a bike ride.
What? What does that have to
And
do with it?
that's like, we think the inspired action has to be, okay, go feel inspired to email the authors again. And it's often not. It's often the bike ride. And then you go for the bike ride and you come back and look, there's an email. I mean, I've had this happen so many times. I remember really, really wanting a certain thing to happen, and it was a business thing. And the more I got in alignment with it, the more I wanted to go just make some art, which had nothing to do with this business thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I scheduled for myself the next day, because I had a pretty open calendar. I made a schedule that said, you know what, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to, and that moment when I felt inspired to make some art, I started getting out my art supplies, setting up the area that I was going to do some work, and put on my schedule that I was going to do that. And all throughout that day, I kept thinking about it, and I kept, having a plan for it and finding more supplies that I needed in any moment that I had. And it felt so good looking forward to it. And then I spent about 4 hours the next day just immersed in this project that I was painting, and for no reason, like just to have fun. It was like, it felt so good to do it. And that evening, the business thing that I wanted to happen just all fell together and happened.
Wow, that's a nice result.
Like, I put all the art stuff away. I was finished with the project. I came in and there it was. And I thought, that's inspired action.
It is.
And yet there was no connection.
None.
I wasn't saying, so that's a good thing to remember, whatever we're trying to create, is that when we suddenly feel inspired to do something and it feels good. And I know some people that will ask themselves, once they're in alignment with that desired outcome, okay, now what would feel really good to do right now? And it might be go for a bike ride. It might be take a nap. It might be, something that doesn't seem connected.
Yep, it happens. And by the way, I want to also emphasize the importance of already being in the happy feeling place before you even pay attention to something that could be an inspired action. Because what often people will do is they won't get themselves into that really good feeling place, and then they'll say, well, what is it I feel like doing? Well, I feel like playing hooky right now. And so they'll go play hooky, and all of a sudden it leads to a bad result. And they say, well, I thought I was supposed to take an inspired action. Well, it wasn't really an inspired action because you weren't in a good feeling place before you even listened to the action. You got to get there first.
Right. And that, I remember when we read that I think it was last week or the week before, there was just one little section that talked about pivoting from what you don't want, letting that clarify what you do want, and then really immersing yourself in the feelings of what it would feel like, and that's what produces the inspired idea.
Right.
And so when we skip that part, and I think what happens a lot of times, not only do we assume that the action has to be directly and logically connected to that outcome we want, but we think of that action first, and then we try somehow to like magically imbue it with inspiration. Like we think, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to call all these people. And then we try to make ourselves feel good about it. Like we're trying to force that logical action that we've determined would be the right thing to do. We try to force it to feel inspired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
No, well, that's actually a formula for disaster, is what that is.
But I think it's a pretty common thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very common. And it's also probably the biggest source of confusion, because people will take that kind of a step and they'll say, but it didn't produce the result I expected. Well, actually, somebody posted about this just yesterday, I believe it was. They posted something to the effect that they had been in a happy place. They'd been visualizing having this money in their pocket, so to speak. That's the way they phrased it. That they were really getting excited. They were thinking about how they were going to spend it, and then poof, it disappeared. And I thought to myself, well, there's something wrong with their description there. Most likely they weren't in alignment, because money just doesn't poof disappear. It's your emotions that disappear, or your emotions that weren't really there to kind of, the reality of it comes to the fore, like, oh, I guess I wasn't really feeling that, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, or you said they were talking about feeling really good about spending it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were feeling good about getting rid of it, and it disappeared.
Yeah, there's that direct connection too, isn't there?
So I think that all those things are really important, though. It's important to recognize, and this is why I think the whole idea of enjoying the alignment for alignment's sake is important, because it's like that old story of the farmer that keeps digging up the seeds to see if they're sprouted. You have to walk away at some point.
Yeah.
You have to go do something else. You have to have faith that the seeds are going to sprout. You planted them, you're watering them with your alignment practice, and they're going to sprout. And we can't keep watching and digging everything up. So when we think we're in alignment and then we keep checking back to see if anything's happening, we're still focusing on the lack of, instead of focusing on the manifestation or the feeling that we'll have. That's important to remember.
Well, the good news, therefore, is that no matter what it is that we want to have happen or come into our lives, manifest, whatever it is, all of it starts with the same first step. It's even before the ask. It's the get into the good feeling place step. So if we just live for the idea of being in a good feel place, a place that always feels good because we just want to feel good all the time, that's when we're maximizing our ability to attract everything we want to attract successfully into our lives.
Well, I love the very last part of this is what you're saying. Wanting and believing is alignment. Wanting and expecting is alignment.
Right.
You notice that the word wanting is still in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's still the desire.
Mm-hmm.
Expecting something unwanted is not alignment. And then you can feel your alignment or misalignment. And we often don't pay attention to how we feel until we're just not liking it.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we even try to talk ourselves into it.
But our body is always giving us clues through our emotions.
It's like,
if we will develop a wider emotional vocabulary, we'll start to recognize that our body's always talking to us.
It's like what you were talking about a minute ago, where you said that we will try to talk ourselves into something. So even if we're not feeling good, we'll try to pretend that we are feeling good. We'll the fake it till you make it idea, right? But if you never actually make it, the faking it part didn't really help at all. Oh yeah, I feel good, and inside you're feeling rotten. Well, you got to get off the feeling rotten part. If you don't get off the feeling rotten part, it doesn't help.
Yeah, and the fake it till you make it. It has its place, but it has to be properly understood.
Yes, it's
not pretending things are okay when they're not.
Right.
It's not pretending that you're okay with something that's not okay. And that's
very true.
Right?
Very true, yeah.
It's like, if it's not okay, it's not okay. And we need to be real about that and then focus on what would be okay.
That's the job right there. That's enough to keep us busy right there. Instead of focusing on, that's really not okay. It's really not okay. Okay, we agree. That's not okay. Now, what part is okay? That's the trick right there.
Well, it's like today when you said, let's turn this paragraph around.
Exactly. Yeah.
It took some effort.
It does.
My brain was like, wait, what? I had to look at it for a moment. But boy, once we got there, it was so pure and easy and clean and powerful. That was amazing. I'm going to be using that all day.
Something else that takes effort is having to draw the show to a close when I want to keep going, because that's exactly where we are right now. We're out of time. But Cindie, it's been great. I know you're going to be away next week, but we'll see you back here in 2 weeks.
I will be back. I will return.
And we will see you all next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.